Welcome to this course on the ProvePrivacy 4-step formula for establishing a good data protection culture in your organization. We asked our founder, Mark Roebuck, how can we go about helping an organization to build a data protection culture, ensuring it is ingrained within the fabric of your organization?
Well, let's assume that you've already started your job as a data protection practitioner, and that what you want to do is build a great culture within your organization. I think there's probably 4 steps which you need to be looking at. The first one is training, making sure that everybody understands what it is they're supposed to be doing. The second one is building a feedback loop, making sure that you understand and you've told them and you can work with them. Then it comes down to collaboration, making sure that everybody works together. And then finally, what we're also looking at is a support structure where people see you as the support and you rely on them for support and build a culture that way. So let's talk about training. There are 3 areas of training where we need to be looking at and considering. The first one is all staff. The second one is your department heads. And the third one is your senior management. All staff training should be done regularly. The ICO requires on a breach reporting form that we answer the question whether or not staff have been trained in the last 2 years, so it makes sense to train people on a regular basis. The kind of training that you need to be looking at with all staff training is probably something like e-learning, where they're doing a course once a year. And that course should really cover off things that you really need them to understand. So what's a data breach? How do you report a data breach? Why does it need to be reported quickly? Similar kind of questions around data subject access requests. Can you identify one? Do you know who to report it to? And those kind of things. But then you've got other things which you could cover off in that training course, such as how do you manage data when you're out of the office? How do you manage shredding? All of those kind of things. So it's data protection in its general sense. But it's enough to give them an understanding of the law, the regulation, why it's important, what the potential sanctions are, and so on. That's what we're trying to get across. With department heads, I would suggest that it's better to go a little deeper, give them a much more solid understanding, do face-to-face training, get people in a room, do half a day with them, let them understand data protection a lot more deeper and a lot more seriously. That way they've got opportunities to ask you questions, you can start to build on those relationships, and you start to gain some respect as well as the person that's managing data protection. Show them as part of that training that you're there to support them, that they need to understand what the problems are, but it's their policies, it's their processes that need to be managed properly and worked properly. So give them that more detailed understanding with an opportunity to ask questions. Finally, and probably the most difficult one to do, is the senior management. As high as you can get them to understand what data protection is all about. You're looking at the board level, exec level, see if you can get time on the exec, even if it's just a couple of hours or an hour or so, just to let them understand and get them to understand what the risks are and what the problems are and what the sanctions could be and so on. It's key that you do this because when it comes to escalation and getting people to understand that there are problems which need to be resolved, then this exec team over there to help you. So build good relationships with the exec, especially the areas where you know there's a higher data risk. Feedback's really important. When people report a data breach, they need to learn from you where they've gone wrong, but you need to do it in a way that really works and kind of is supporting. So it's not about telling someone off. It's not about making people feel bad for what they've done. It's about encouraging them. It's about saying, well done, you've spotted the breach, we know that it's happened, let's look at how we resolve it. So the first part is that positive feedback. The second part is working with them to understand what it is they need to do in order for it not to happen again, and the kind of things that they can do in order to support you and to make sure that the risk is kept lower. So for example, if an email has been sent with data on it and it's gone to the wrong individual, then work with them to pull a plan together. Really simple plan. Email the recipient you've sent the data to, ask them to delete it, get confirmation. When this has happened a few times, you will find that people in the organization then know the kind of things that they need to be doing. It's really important that you build that relationship so that they feel comfortable to report something, because the more you can work with them, the more you can support them, the more you learn about the issues and the errors and the problems within the organization. And you're capturing things like those data breaches early and managing them. But you're also understanding what's going wrong in the company. And so you can start to build risk into the way that you're working and start to understand the kind of things that are happening so that you can resolve those problems again. So feedback is really key. Collaboration is key. One thing that I've seen a lot of data protection people do is take full responsibility for building a ROPA and take full responsibility for understanding what the risks are in the ROPA and take full responsibility for solving those risks. This is why collaboration is important, because what you then have is a very busy data protection practitioner. And in actual fact, the people who own that risk are the people in the business. And so the best thing to do is to work with a team of people in each department, what we call data champions, work with those data champions. So it's them who are giving you the information, or them who are completing the ROPA. It's them who are helping you to identify where the risks are. And then you collaborate back with them so that they understand that they're carrying that risk. It's their procedural risk. It's their problem. But they understand that, they see you as supportive, and that collaboration basically builds a working group where people can work together to solve data protection risks. If you really want to build a solid culture for supporting data protection, then consider using data champions. Consider building a team. So work with your department. Have someone in each department who is responsible for data protection within their own department. As we've said previously, make sure that they're helping you pull the ROPA together. In fact, as much of the ROPA that they can do, get them to do that. Let them come to you with problems and you help them with those problems. So for example, let them understand that when we have a data sharing relationship, there needs to be a contract in place. That might not be the ones who can review the contract, but at least they can identify that it needs to be there and so on. So those data champions are the ones who are kind of building that structure from the bottom. What I recommend you do is have a series of working group meetings in place. So once a month, you get all of the data champions in a room at once, and you talk about data protection problems across the business. So you can then discuss things in the ROPA, you can discuss the risks you've identified, you can discuss any data breaches that are coming in and any fundamental underlying risks that might be on those data breaches and so on. And then what you're going to do is you're going to build a culture of people who are responsible and responsive to data protection problems within the organization. And that really does help you to build that culture. So what you end up with, if you follow this 4-step plan, is you end up with a group of people who understand data protection. You have the support from the top, and you have a support within your organization. You have a team of people working with you to build around the data protection risks and to resolve those. And you have a good, solid, collaborative feedback process in place, which enables you to build a reputation and work with those people to make sure that the risk is hit as soon as you spot it. Works good.